Hi, I'm Stephanie Thomas
And I'm Mary Thomas.
of Thomas Thomas and Thomas PC, also known as the Sales Tax Sisters. And this video today is
Taxable Purchases Part 2.
Yeah.
We got some messages last week from a couple of you guys saying that you found the first video to be a little bit difficult and that you wanted us to try to simplify it a little bit. And so this is what we're going to do. We're going to take taxable purchases down as much as we can. And then we're going to talk about a couple of the questions that we got from you guys. Because there's something that's going on that's quite common with taxpayers, but we need to suss it out with you so we can manage your expectations of both us and this channel. So, first things first, let's get to business. Taxable purchases. Taxable purchases on your sales tax return is the place where you report tax purchases that you made that are subject to tax that your vendor, for whatever reason, did not charge you the tax on. And do you want to say something?
I was going to say common examples of that include purchases that you make over the internet, depending on what you're using those items for. An example of that is if you're buying office furniture from out of state. Say you're in Texas and you're buying office furniture from California because you want something nice and fancy. And the vendor in California is not permitted to collect Texas tax. They ship those items to you and there's no tax charge on it. Well, that is a taxable purchase, which means that you need to accrue the appropriate use tax using line number 3 on your Texas sales and use tax return and send the appropriate tax in to the controller's office.
So what's going on with this is, and we're going to go into a couple of other examples of this, but what's going on with this is you have to discern, is what you paid for subject to tax?
Mm-hmm.
If it is subject to tax, did your vendor charge you the appropriate sales or use tax? If they did not, then you report it yourself directly to directly to the appropriate taxing authority. Don't just add tax to an invoice and send it to a vendor. That vendor may not have charged you tax because they are not registered to give that money to the state. If you do that, you may be paying that tax twice.
But the important thing for you to remember is, just like Mary said, you have to determine if what it is you purchase, if it is taxable, and you have to determine if that vendor charged you sales tax. And it's not just if they charge you sales tax, if they charge you the appropriate sales tax, because sometimes vendors may charge maybe the state rate, but they don't think to charge the city rate or the county rate or
the local rate.
Exactly.
So this is the thing. So here are a couple of other examples of that, very common examples. One would be if you have an office and you're paying someone to provide a taxable service such as landscaping your yard, and you pay them weekly to do this. If they're not registered to collect sales or use tax, they're not going to be collecting it. That doesn't mean that you don't necessarily owe that. That means that you're going to put that in the taxable purchases section and give that money directly to the state. And that's very common that you will have little mom and pop shops that really should be registered to collect sales or use tax, and they're not registered. If they're not registered and they're not collecting the tax, that doesn't mean that you don't owe it. That means that you have a duty to report it to the taxing authority directly.
Another example, because there are certain instances where landscaping may be not taxable, but another example that we see a lot with people is when you have small mom and pops cleaning your office. And that's a janitorial service. Janitorial services are normally taxable, but usually small mom and pop operations may not be permitted to collect sales tax. So it is incumbent upon you as a good corporate citizen to accrue the appropriate use tax and remit that in on your sales and use tax return.
You're required to do it.
Yes.
Now, when we give these little examples of taxability, these are just little examples, and typically we're talking about Texas. Rules vary from state to state, and
they can sometimes change.
And they can change. And so we're going to steer away from specific examples of, taxability, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But the last example of taxable purchases is going to be a situation, as Stephanie talked about a few minutes ago, where your vendor may charge you, and again, we're talking about a Texas rate as an example. Your vendor may charge you 6.25% sales tax, but you may be in a jurisdiction where your purchases are taxable at 8.25%. You're going to use that taxable purchases section of your return to remit the 2% differential to the taxing authority. You owed it and your vendor didn't charge it. So in a nutshell, taxable purchases is the section of your return where if you have made a taxable purchase that your vendor did not, for whatever reason, they may correctly not have charged you tax because they're not registered to collect it. You don't know. But and you don't really care. Because if they didn't charge you the correct amount of tax and you know this is a taxable purchase, you're going to remit that tax directly to the appropriate taxing authority. Keep your trail of, this is what I remitted tax on. So if you are ever audited,
it's very clear to the auditor what the taxable purchase, what items comprise the taxable purchases number. So it's very clear that you keep it. It's very important that you keep it very clear. You keep a clear trail about what you remitted use tax on.
Now, as to the questions that we got, all four of them go beyond the scope of what these videos are meant to be.
Except for one, the ones about the resale certificates. Okay. And the thing about the resale certificates is a couple questions that we got were about whether or not items that you purchase for resale, do they count as taxable purchases? And I'm hoping after looking at the first taxable purchase video and listening to the parts that we've already discussed that you know this answer, but in case you don't, if you are purchasing something to resell and you issue a resale certificate to a vendor so they don't charge you sales tax, that does not fall under the category of taxable purchases unless you do not resell those items, you use them yourself. An example of that is if you are selling clothes and you purchase those different clothing items and issue a resale certificate to purchase those tax-free, and for whatever reason you see a jacket that you want for yourself, well, the resale certificate does not apply to that item. That is a taxable purchase, and you need to accrue use tax on that item. So I'm hoping that illuminates what resale certificates, how that ties in with taxable purchases.
So this is the thing. The other pieces about
equipment
and that type of thing. When you are talking about that, you are talking about manufacturing exemptions, and that goes beyond what we really want to do. The thing about this channel is that we want to give you a general guideline as to what concepts you need to be aware of. We're going to send each of you a link to get in touch with us offline so that we can explore exactly what it is that you need. But as far as this video, as one of you, I think Barry pointed out very succinctly, we want to give you a clear, short, simple explanation. We want the content on this channel to be evergreen. We are not going to be going into specific taxability unless there's something that's just a hot spot, like COVID fees or something like that. We're going to keep this very simple, and hopefully we're going to keep all these videos under 10 to 12 minutes. We're really shooting for under 10. So we're going to send each of you a link. And if you want to pursue getting specific taxability, then we can do that offline.
Exactly. But the point of the channel is, like Mary said, to give you a general guideline. We are not going to be discussing taxability specifically because, things change, and that's not what the channel is about. If you need additional information from us, our contact information is readily available on the channel. And like she said, we will send you a link if it is warranted. So is that it?
That is it. Thanks, guys. And we hope that this helped you understand what taxable purchases are and how they dovetail. It's twofold. Is it taxable? And did your vendor charge you the correct rate? And if not, that's what that line is for.
Exactly. So everybody have a great day. Thank you so much for subscribing. If you like the video, please thumbs us up. And we'll see you next time.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.